This story was told to me by my mother, and her grandmother once told her a long time ago. Believe it or not, but it was real. I know that most people are skeptical about mysticism until they see something strange and possibly sinister. Anyway, I want to emphasize that this story is written on real events. Next, according to Mom. This incident happened in our small village, where I spent my entire childhood. A friendly but small family lived opposite our house. Mom and Dad, Grandma, and a little brother and sister. In peace and harmony, they spent every evening playing board games, as all friendly families should. What else the villagers noticed was that these kind people never refused to help anyone. In general, they were also ideal neighbors, which I can wish for all people. They did not know grief until one fateful day. Once, this family's mother became very ill. Doctors helplessly threw up their hands, trying to make a diagnosis, but the disease was hitherto unknown in medicine. The vitality left this kind woman more and more every day, and soon she died. How did it happen that a young mother who had been healthy all her life, went to church every Sunday, lived according to almost all the covenants, died so early? This question tormented all relatives and people who know about the grief of the young family. The whole village was mourned then, as it was a huge loss for all residents. But the daughter grieved the most and prayed all day long in the local church for her mother to come back so that she could hug and kiss her at least once more. Days, weeks, months passed, and the daughter still cried every night under her blanket, remembering all the bright moments associated with her mother. How they walked in the local forest, how they collected mushrooms, and then together they cooked a delicious dinner for the whole family. Or somehow skillfully beat Dad in a board game, while smiling slyly, winking at her daughter. It was such a great loss for the girl that one night in her room, sobbing, she went to the window and shouted loudly, "I want my mother to come back." And then she fell to the floor and roared loudly. All the family members woke up from a strong scream. The grandmother and father ran into the room to check if something had happened to the child, and then they gave her sleeping pills so that she could sleep normally, at least a little. The younger brother, who was in the same room with the girl, was especially scared that night. After this incident, the boy began to replay something frightening in his sister's behavior. Not immediately, but after about 3 days it started. The girl began to wake up at night and go to the window, looking into it for a long time. After about 10 minutes of silent gaze, she seemed to start talking to someone, and so quietly so as not to wake up her brother and the rest of the family. But the boy did not sleep and tried to follow her behavior, and also listened to her every word. The first oddity was that the girl had never suffered from sleepwalking. On the contrary, she slept very soundly, at least until her mother's death. Why did she now start getting up in the middle of the night and going to the window as if enchanted? My brother didn't understand until one moment. On the second night after the first incident, the girl, still quietly going to the window and looking out of it for about 10 minutes, said quite clearly, "Hello, Mommy." The brother, hearing this phrase, immediately hid under the blanket and closed his eyes. A shiver ran through his entire body. Fear crept up quite suddenly and settled inside the boy. Which mommy? She's dead. It occurred to him then, after lying like that under the blanket for 5 minutes and not hearing a single rustle, he ventured to see what was going on in his room. The sister was nowhere to be found. Not in the crib, not by the window. Feeling a draft, the boy decided to check where it was coming from, and, having already got up from the crib, he wanted to go to the window, when he heard the creak of the front door in the corridor. Looking in that direction, the guy noticed that it was wide open. There was no doubt. The girl left the house under someone's influence. Creeping up to the threshold of the house, the brother saw his sister. She was standing in the yard and calmly communicating with someone under the very window that led to the children's bedroom. The dark silhouette of the man next to the girl was clearly visible even at night. Seeing this picture, the boy ran with fear to his parents' room, where his father was sleeping, and began to wake him up. Dad was blown up at the same second, and together with his son they ran out into the street. What was the surprise of the guy when he did not see either that dark silhouette or his sister at the window? Going into the nursery together, the family members breathed a sigh of relief when they noticed the peacefully sleeping girl in her crib. The next morning, the grandmother and father demanded from the boy that he tell the whole truth, which has been happening to his sister for 2 days now. Having fully heard the whole story in colors from beginning to end, the parents looked at each other excitedly, and at the same moment it was decided to go to church in order to tell everything in detail to the local priest. As it turned out, they did it for a reason and very timely. On the same day, after lighting up every window, as well as doors and walls in the house, the priest strictly ordered to lock the girl in the furthest room and not let her out, no matter how pitifully she asked. After reading a prayer and crossing himself at the last, the priest left the room, reminding the family to keep an eye on the girl and not go outside themselves that night. Soon it began to get dark, and the father closed the incomprehensible daughter in one of the rooms, where there was not a single window, in order to protect her from the unknown, which hid the night. Hours passed, but nothing happened. The father decided that it was necessary to spend the night together in one room, because even he was very scared, and time after time he remembered the words of the priest. Suddenly, in the children's bedroom, at first there were soft, but distinct knocks on the window, which could be heard even from the next room. Less than a minute later, the knock was repeated again, more insistently. The guest clearly did not want to leave just like that. Meanwhile, Grandma began to read prayers, driving all kinds of demons and other evil spirits away from home. The girl, in turn, began violently knocking on the door and scratching her, demanding to let herself out into the street. She didn't understand why she was being kept locked up and not allowed to go out to her mom. And then there was a loud bang on the wall of the house. Paintings, icons, dishes in the kitchen. Something sinister and very strong began to go around the house, as if looking for a gap to get inside. Grandmother still did not stop reading the prayer, having already changed her calm speech to a scream. The creature clearly did not like it, and it struck a second, then a third, and then a fourth time, striking each wall of the house once. Without achieving any result and without getting into the house, something screamed terribly. The scream was so strong that at that moment, it seemed, the whole village woke up and began to listen to the gloomy silence of the night. The next morning, the sleepy girl was let out of the room, and what was the surprise of her parents when she seriously said that they did not remember anything that had happened these 3 days. The priest decided to talk to the girl about the death of her mother. What he said to her then is unknown, but after this conversation she became cheerful again and stopped crying at night. Soon the family sold the house and went to live elsewhere in order to start everything from scratch. The brother and sister grew up, never thinking about that case again. What would have happened if the girl had gone out to that creature on the third day remains a mystery.